Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in again to the Hui Podcast. When we talk about World War II, one thing is clear. The world's major powers were divided into two opposing camps. On one side, there was the Axis, led by Nazi Germany, Italy, and Japan. On the other, the Allies, which included the United States, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and China, among others. These two factions engaged in fierce battles across the globe. Despite their differences in geographical distances, the Allies, especially the US, UK, and the Soviet Union, maintained a steady flow of cooperation. They shared intelligence, supplied each other with vital resources, and executed joint operations like the famous Normandy landings. Beyond just having the advantage in supplies, their ability to work together played a major role in securing victory. The situation within the Axis, however, was completely different. Germany, Italy, and Japan were all driven by grand ambitions to overthrow the old world order dominated by the UK and the US and replace it with their own. In theory, they should have been tightly aligned, coordinating their efforts to achieve ultimate victory. But in reality, communication between them was nearly non-existent. Whatever limited exchange of materials or intelligence they had was mostly conducted through submarines, and even then, such operations were extremely rare. So, why was there such a stark contrast? What made the Axis so disconnected despite their supposed alliance? That's exactly what we're going to explore today. Before the war even began, Germany, Italy, and Japan had already established their alliance. However, geography played a significant role in limiting their interaction. Germany and Italy, both in Europe, were separated from Japan by vast distances. For a while, before mid-1941, Japan managed to maintain some contact with Germany and Italy via the Trans-Siberian Railway. One notable example was in the spring of 1941 when Japan's foreign minister Yosuke Matsuoka traveled to Europe using this railway. On his way back, he even made a stop in Moscow. Around the same time, Japan and the Soviet Union quietly signed a neutrality pact. But everything changed when Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union. That railway connection, the one fragile link between Japan and the rest of the Axis, was severed almost overnight. Faced with this challenge, the Axis powers attempted to overcome the problem with long-range flights. In 1942, an Italian bomber with impressive range took off from Rome, stopping in Crimea, then under German control, to refuel. The plane then dodged Soviet air defenses and fighter jets, eventually landing at a Japanese airfield in Baotou, China. After completing its mission in Tokyo, it retraced its route back to Rome. This daring flight proved that such a connection was theoretically possible, but in reality, it was highly impractical. The journey was fraught with danger, and Japan wasn't too thrilled about the idea of relying on Italian aircraft for strategic transportation. So, after that one successful attempt, the plan was scrapped entirely. With land and air routes proving unreliable, the Axis turned to the sea. Initially, they experimented with disguised surface ships to sneak past British naval patrols. Japan referred to its supply efforts for Germany as Yanagi Transport, while Germany called its shipments to Japan reverse Yanagi Transport. In 1942, a total of 12 Japanese ships managed to reach Nazi-occupied France, delivering 60,000 tons of raw materials, most of which, like rubber, were highly sought after by the Germans. However, the British Navy quickly caught on and tightened their grip on the Indian Ocean. The situation for the Axis got even worse. Germany's surface fleet had been mostly neutralized. Italy was trapped inside the Mediterranean, and Japan's navy was already stretched thin fighting both the US and the UK. With no better options, Japan had to make a tough decision: rely entirely on submarines for transporting critical supplies. In April 1942, the Japanese submarine I-30 set sail from Kure, carrying a valuable cargo of mica, shellac, and the highly classified oxygen torpedo blueprints, along with a seaplane. Its destination was the German-controlled submarine base in France. During its journey, I-30 carried out raiding missions in the Indian Ocean before circumventing the Cape of Good Hope and crossing the Atlantic. By late August, it successfully reached Lorient, becoming the first Japanese submarine to arrive in German-occupied territory during the war. The arrival was met with great enthusiasm by the German Navy. Both Admiral Raeder and U-boat Commander Donitz personally welcomed the crew. The seaplane it had brought from Japan even took flight in France, prompting German media to celebrate the supposed unity between the Japanese Naval Air Force and the German military. For nearly a month, the Japanese officers and sailors enjoyed their time in France, They toured Paris, admired the local women, and indulged in fine French wine. However, the mission was far from over. They had to bring back Germany's latest technological advances to Japan. On its return journey, I-30 was loaded with air defense radar blueprints, high-precision German optical instruments, an Enigma encryption machine, as well as gold and industrial diamonds. A portion of the cargo was offloaded in Singapore, but as it continued its journey home, the submarine struck a mine and sank. The operation had ended in failure, but Japan had no alternative but to persist in using submarines for critical transport. By June 1943, another submarine, I-8, resumed the perilous task of ferrying strategic materials, navigating the vast ocean while avoiding enemy detection. Meanwhile, I-29, commanded by the highly skilled Captain Kanashi Takakazu, was stealthily carrying out an equally vital mission, delivering Germany's latest research breakthroughs. This submarine was a silent messenger, transporting some of the most guarded secrets of the war. Several months earlier, I-29 had departed from Cure on its way to Europe. After nearly 3 months of navigating the deep seas, it finally reached the French port of Lorient. There, it offloaded high-tech German optical devices and other blueprints before embarking on the long-return journey back to Japan, its hull once again filled with invaluable scientific data. However, the Allies had been closely monitoring Axis submarine activities. Thanks to intelligence leaks from the Enigma code, they had a strong grasp of when and where Japanese submarines would travel. Each voyage I-29 undertook was a dangerous gamble, as Allied forces were constantly lying in wait. This was especially true in Singapore, where British and American submarines lurked in the surrounding waters. The fate of I-30 served as a grim reminder of the risks involved. In 1944, Kanashi Takakazu once again led I-29 on another mission. This time, the submarine carried cutting-edge German aviation engines, food supplies, and blueprints for jet fighters and rocket interceptors. But just as it left Singapore, American submarines began their pursuit. Eventually, I-29 and its captain met their end beneath the waves. Despite this loss, some of the aircraft blueprints had already been unloaded in Singapore before the submarine's final voyage. This allowed Japanese engineers to develop their own jet fighters, leading to the creation of the Kika fighter and the Shusui rocket interceptor. By the time these aircraft were ready for use, however, Japan's defeat was already looming. In the end, they had little impact on the outcome of the war, becoming mere footnotes in history. As losses mounted, Germany and Japan sought alternative methods to continue their exchanges. German submarines handled the transatlantic journey, while Japanese submarines waited at prearranged locations to receive the precious cargo and technology. In the chaos of naval warfare, these rendezvous points became critical yet extremely perilous. Two submarines meeting in the vast ocean had to complete the delicate task of exchanging personnel and supplies, an undertaking fraught with danger. Conducting such an operation in turbulent waters, particularly with heavy equipment, was nearly impossible. Moreover, as the war progressed, the Allies became increasingly aware of German and Japanese submarine movements, turning these meeting points into prime targets for surveillance and attack. Despite the inherent risks, these submarine rendezvous had certain advantages over solo missions. In early 1943, a German submarine was tasked with escorting Indian nationalist leader Subhas Chandra Bose to the Indian Ocean near Madagascar, where a Japanese submarine awaited his arrival. After a successful transfer, Bose reached Tokyo safely. This operation demonstrated how both nations adapted to the growing anti-submarine threat and sought ways to maintain their crucial exchanges. Germany also attempted to send several submarines directly to Japan, but only one successfully arrived and was received by the Japanese Navy. By March 1945, as Nazi Germany faced imminent defeat, one final submarine, U-234, set sail for Japan. It carried over 500 kilograms of uranium oxide, a fully assembled Messerschmitt Me-262 jet fighter, and schematics for advanced electric torpedoes. Hitler, fully aware that his downfall was near, hoped that his Eastern ally would continue the fight against the US and Britain. But fate had other plans. Before U-234 could complete its journey, Germany's surrender was officially transmitted. The German commander made the decision to surface and surrender to the Allies. The Japanese officers on board, unwilling to face capture, took their own lives. The submarine never reached Japan, but its dramatic final voyage became the inspiration for numerous films and historical retellings. These submarine exchanges remain a fascinating chapter of World War II history, showcasing both the determination and desperation of Germany and Japan. However, they also underscore the futility of their efforts. Despite their ingenuity, these missions failed to alter the war's outcome and only resulted in more lost lives. In management theory, there is a concept known as the hard-working fallacy, where sheer effort is used to compensate for a lack of strategic foresight. Germany and Japan's actions during the war perfectly exemplified this mistake. Blinded by their ambitions of a new world order, they pushed forward relentlessly, ignoring the realities of their situation. In the end, their sailors and submariners paid the ultimate price for this misguided vision. That's all for today's discussion on the submarine exchanges between Germany and Japan during World War II. Hopefully, this story provides some insight into the complexities and harsh realities of wartime strategy. Thanks for listening.